When I'm constructing a narrative, usually what I'm looking for is theme. I'm trying to figure out what is the story about. And I think the key to a tight narrative is trying to discover what that theme is, explore it fully, use the narrative technique to take that question and just kind of run with it in all of its complexities, and then come towards some greater understanding about it. So with passing and the idea of passing, the idea itself has been explored thoroughly, particularly in African American literature of the early 20th century. People like Nella Larson, and even going back to the 19th century, back to Uncle Tom's Cabin, passing has also been the central issue. In part, not really because there was a lot of people who looked like me who could pass, but because it was a metaphor for a lot of other things. Sometimes it was a metaphor for integration and assimilation. Sometimes it was a narrative technique used by authors to try and let white Americans and often Europeans outside of the States get into the character and imagine themselves in the exact same role in the way that they might not if they felt like the character was more alien to them. So when I was exploring it, I wanted to look at this larger issue of identity and transcending identity to deal with social constraint, because that's really what it's about. So when you say that, then it opens up a lot of other possibilities. And one of the possibilities that opened up was the idea of gender constraint and overcoming gender constraint through switching identities. And I actually at one point talked about doing a contemporary story along those lines. And then I was looking at the idea of sexual identity, because probably the biggest the biggest issue of passing in today's society is usually sexual preference. And people who sort of pretend that they have a sexual preference of the majority so they can get away from persecution. So, but within this story, this idea of taking this racial concept and moving it past race to explore what it really was, because I think like a lot of times when we talk about race, you can get stuck in on the specifics of the racial dialogue when we're really talking about larger human dialogues. And so the gender issue here, let me explore that in a way that was it was obvious in a bunch of ways, but in other ways, hopefully less so, and let me explore it. I think the other thing is the difference between America, one of the differences in America and Britain, and why it can seem like very simplistic, the way that that visual traits are used in America as definitions of social category, and not in Britain, because largely for the majority of Britain's history, you know, everybody was the same ethnic group until relatively recently. So so there's a lot more nuanced understanding. But I will say this, it's a lot easier to say hi to somebody or ask how the weather is, and you know, not worry about being categorized on class or educational levels in the States. Usually because the second they see you, they can classify what social class you're into. So it works out.